Cinque Terre, or Five Lands, sits along the rugged Ligurian coast in northwestern Italy. For centuries, these villages were connected more by sea than by roads, but we arrived the modern way, by train. A very packed train with no space for luggage. Our stop was Rio Maggiore, where we'd be staying for the next few days. After stepping off the train, we caught our first glimpse of the sea. Then came the long pedestrian tunnel through the mountain. Then suddenly, the town opened up in front of us. Next were the stairs. So many stairs. Troy took one for the team and hauled our bags up what felt like several thousand steps to our apartment. The apartment itself was simple but perfectly functional for a short stay. No balcony, but we did have a great view looking down over the town below with the pastel buildings packed tightly together between the steep green hills and the sea. After dropping our bags and catching our breath, we headed straight down to the marina to catch the ferry. At about $17 each for a one-way ride, it felt a little steep for a short trip, but we knew seeing Cinque Terre from the water was part of the experience. And honestly, this was the angle these villages were built for. The sea was calm, the sky blue, and every village appeared like a postcard pasted onto the cliffs. Rows of faded pink, yellow, and orange buildings stacked impossibly above the water, with tiny boats bobbing below, and terraces carved into the hillside behind them. The ferry made 3 stops along the way, each harbor somehow looking even smaller and more crowded than the last, before finally arriving in Monterosso al Mare, the largest and flattest of the 5 villages, which, after hauling luggage up Rio Maggiore's staircases earlier, suddenly felt like a very modern concept. We made our way through another long tunnel, and just like that, it opened onto bright blue water and one of the few long stretches of beach in Cinque Terre. Tall cliffs rose behind the town while rows of umbrellas and lounge chairs filled the sand below. We didn't realize that 70 degrees apparently means full swimming weather to Europeans. We were underprepared and immediately regretted it. We walked along the boardwalk until we reached Il Gigante, the massive stone statue built into the cliffside overlooking the sea. The 20-foot sculpture of Neptune was constructed in 1910, though time has taken its toll. Though we weren't prepared to jump in the water ourselves, we cooled off with cold drinks by the beach. We grabbed a spot facing the sea and enjoyed the warm sun and the waves rolling in against the rocks. We strolled back along the beach where we caught the train back to Rio Maggiore. There we grabbed one of the local favorites, fried seafood served in a paper cone, perfect for wandering the waterfront. The tender calamari came out hot and crispy, lightly salted with a squeeze of lemon. Exactly the kind of food that tastes better sitting beside the sea. That evening, we headed for the Via dell'Amore, or Path of Love, the famous cliffside walkway connecting Rio Maggiore and Manarola. This is the Via dell'Amore, and it's a beautiful little 20-minute walk that's right along the cliffside. And we planned to be here right at 8 o'clock so we could see the sunset.
But sun's not
no sun
really,
today.
It's a little cloudy, but we're going to enjoy it nonetheless. The weather feels really nice.
It was hard to complain much while walking along the narrow path carved into the cliffs with waves crashing below and wide views stretching out across the Ligurian Sea. Even without the sunset, it was one of those walks where you keep stopping every few minutes to stare a little longer. The path empties out near the train station in Manarola. From there, we wandered through the town square, down the narrow lanes of town, until we were drawn into a cute little bar and restaurant by the sounds of live music drifting onto the street. After a glass of some local wine, we walked down to the waterfront before heading back to Rio Maggiore. It's overcast, but not raining, so we're gonna cross our fingers and set out to explore. Though the skies were gray, the colorful buildings of Rio Maggiore still looked almost unreal. The pastel-colored buildings stacked tightly up the hillside with tiny green shutters were still so photogenic. We explored more of the village, climbing the steep stairway up toward Castello de Rio Maggiore, a small medieval castle overlooking the town. We skipped going inside, but the views from the top were worth the climb alone, looking out over the harbor, the cliffs, and the waves crashing against the rocks below. We had picked up the 3-day Cinque Terre pass for the train, which gives unlimited rides between the villages. So we decided to get our money's worth and kept moving. First stop, Vernazza. Often considered the prettiest of the 5 villages, Vernazza wraps around a tiny natural harbor with colorful buildings packed tightly along the waterfront. Narrow alleyways spill directly into the piazza. We wandered into the church of Santa Margherita de Antiochia. It sits almost directly on the water, built in the early 1300s. Inside, it's quiet and unpolished in a way that feels tied to its fishing village roots, with stone columns and soft light filtering through small windows. From there, we climbed even more stairs up towards the Doria Castle, which watches over Vernazza from the cliffs above. Entry was about $3 per person, a small price for what turns into one of the best viewpoints in Cinque Terre. At the top, the views completely open up. The village below curls around its tiny harbor, boats drifting in and out of the turquoise water, with cliffs dropping sharply into the sea on either side. We headed back down to the main street and grabbed a plate of pasta, the kind that arrives simple and steaming and instantly fixes the chill that had settled in from the gray sea air. Sitting outside, we ate slowly, watching the rhythm of Vernazza drift past. While we were sitting there, we noticed an opening carved into the rock across from us, with people slipping in and out. After lunch, we ducked inside, finding a narrow passage that led straight through the stone. On the other side was a small hidden cove where waves were crashing directly onto the rocky shore. We hopped back onto a very busy train and made our way to Monte Rosso again, where we had visited the previous day to explore a little further. We passed a Catholic church with a unique black and white striped facade. Inside was much simpler, but there were a few unexpected touches, including skeletal motifs that reflect the medieval fascination with mortality and the passage of time. We continued on, climbing up more stairs and steep inclines, because in Cinque Terre, the only flat surface is the ocean. This time, we were heading to Buranco Winery, a small hillside vineyard above Monte Rosso, known for its limited production wines made from traditional Ligurian grapes. The winery sits in terraced vineyards carved into the cliffs, where almost everything is still done by hand due to the steep terrain and the difficulty of accessing the land by machinery. It felt like a great place to spend some time on an overcast day. The light softens everything, and you can sit with a glass of wine overlooking the rows of vines clinging to the hillsides. Here we are, just hanging out in our exclusive wine garden. Just us, the olive trees, and the grapevines.
It's beautiful.
After lingering over a lovely glass of white wine, we wandered through the lemon orchard below, where rows of citrus trees stretched across the hillside and the hives of bees kept watch over it all. From there, we made our way back down the hill toward town. When we got back in town, we stopped for some gelato because somehow, even when it's chilly, it always seems like the right decision in Italy. By the time we got back to Rio Maggiore, the sun had finally started breaking through the clouds, turning the sea into shifting layers of blue and silver, highlighting the church against the sky blue background, and showcasing the stacked pastel houses lining the cliffs. That evening, we headed out again just as blue hour was settling in. Rio Maggiore lit up like scattered jewels along the cliffside, each window a warm point of light against the darkening rock and sea below. And with that, we say goodbye to Cinque Terre, with all its cliffs, colors, and stairs, which left almost as much of an impression on our legs as it did in our memories.